review on the reporting aspect of the new integrated platform. We'll walk through what we have. We'll show you the architecture and how it's set up. Please feel free to interrupt with questions at any point. As I said, the schedule for this meeting is 2 hours. I don't expect that we will need to fill all 2 hours, but we can certainly jump down any bunny trails that we may need to. You'll notice you should all be able to see my screen, and you'll notice there's a web address at the top of the screen. Currently, this is a development web address. We are still under development. The product is growing and changing every day. So the things that we see here today may look different tomorrow when we get a production address. I'm going to sign in with my ID, and when I log in, right off the bat, you can see that I have access into 4 different clients. As more clients come on board, if I have access to those clients, they will show up here on this screen. I can jump into any of the clients by clicking on the client, and that will log me in. And if you have a multi-client login, by clicking in the upper right-hand corner where your login credentials are up here, you do have the ability to switch client, which will bring you back here, and you can move to a different client without logging out and in again. So that's something that's very useful. I spoke with Nihir this morning, and he indicated that you folks in California have seen the application. You see a lot of pieces around it. I just want to touch on a couple of items that will be relevant for us. First is the green square in the upper right-hand corner. It drops down to all of the different areas of the system. For today, we're going to spend most of our time underneath the reports area that is listed here. But before we get there, I want to talk about some of the other items that we have or intend to have available. I'm going to go back to my search screen, and I'm just going to pull up a user. We can search by names and other information, plug in account numbers. And when I pull up this search, here's a whole bunch of people with the last name of Smith. And I just want to pull up the contact record here, and so that we can see Agnes T. Smith has some giving history and a relationship with the organization. We have her tags identified, her smart tags, her mail preferences, and what have you. And all this stuff is here right on the screen where we'd be able to go in and communicate with Ms. Smith if we needed to. And we expect to have access to hard copy reports right on this page. And there'll be a number of places in the system where access to reports are available. So we'll take some reports, some contact reports a bit this morning or this afternoon. And some of those reports will be listed here, I imagine over here on the left side menu where it'll say, contact report or contact summary of some sort. Like that. We anticipate that to happen in a couple of different areas, not just in the contact area, but maybe also in the direct marketing area, where when we're looking at an individual mail file, we may have some reports here that would be appropriate in this location of the application as well. There will be an area called reports. And right now on the screen, you'll see that I have, actually, I think I can get a little annotator there. There we go, right here. You can see that we have a reports area with view all, default reports, enhanced reports, and ghosted out at the bottom is agency reports. I think that the view all will probably go away. And we will have a link to the default reports And the enhanced reports will probably be renamed, but they're going to perform the same function that we'll discuss here. So the first thing that we're going to do is let's jump into the default reports area and see what we have for canned reports or default reports available for us at this moment. When we jump into the default reports, we can see that we have 6 folders listed here. Under each folder, we have a variety of reports available. This window, I was speaking with Rakshit this morning, this particular page is probably going to look and feel a little bit different than it does right at the moment. Right now, it feels very different than the rest of the Nonprofit Easy application. And Rakshit and Deval are going to work on trying to integrate the feel of this so that it looks and feels more like the rest of the application. So I'm going to start with our...
Mike?
Yes?
Mike? Hey, this is Paul. Do you have a copy of the sample PDF screen that Rakshit gave us? Andy?
The sample PDF screen that Rakshit gave us. The
reports? Yeah, remember he had sent us he sent you and I just kind of a screen layout showing like what the report image might look like?
I think I was the guy who sent that out.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I believe you.
I should have it here somewhere. I'm trying to think what I called it.
Try going, hey Mike, it's Tracy. I think you sent it to both Paul and I. You just say 2.
Yeah,
Not important for now. Don't worry about it.
okay. So, again, when I was speaking with Rakshit this morning, right now, as I said, this feels different than the rest of the application. We had sketched out a mock-up of what it might look like. Rakshit took that, and he's working with the UI guys to make sure that it looks and feels a bit like the rest of the application. Of course, here we're seeing that we've got 6 folder groups under which there are a number of reports. So I'm going to click on the configuration reports to start with. And here under the configuration report, we have 4 reports listed and available for us. Once we add in the extra modules for the Nonprofit Easy piece, membership and events, there'll be additional folders then beyond this, and we certainly expect that to happen. Okay. But I click on the configuration reports, and it brings me into my settings reports. And here I've got right now 4 reports configured. And I will show the expense group report, which is a configuration control. This is not a report that would be run regularly. It's a report you run every once in a while. Maybe when we add in a new channel, this report shows that I have direct mail expenses and email expenses. And each of these would have different pieces of information or could have different pieces of information in them. And so for this client, we have in our expense group for direct mail, we have 8 buckets to capture costs in. And they are described as they're shown here on the report for total cost. And that is, as I'm explaining what the report is how you execute the report. We will have links that are active so that when you click on the report, it will populate or it will generate the report as it is on the system. Now here it pops up a filter that says, okay, there's a couple of options here, and we've prompted the user to enter a value. So I'm now running the print array detail report, and I have 4 different possible ask arrays or suggested asks for a direct mail file, and I can choose which of those I'd like to review and preview and include on the report. So in their standard print array, it pulls up and it says, okay, this is the client, feed our vets, print array report, and the standard print array, and then our suggested asks and how they all calculate out. Not every report requires a filter, and that filter would be there if it's necessary. It won't need it if it's not necessary. Tracy's just sent us a copy of my mock-up. Thank you, Tracy. Let's see if... So this was an idea that I had sent off to Rakshit to say, hey, you know, for the mock-up, for each folder, can we have the list of available reports underneath it and have it already exploded out? I'm not sure if this will end up being the choice. You know, Rakshit and Deval and the guys will work on that. We did envision maybe being able to collapse these groups because this screen might get very busy. So there's a number of options there as to how that may look.
Hey, Mike, one note on your, you were just making the comment about the filters. For everyone on the group, when reports are written, you can make more than one filter. So you can make as many filters as you want. So you could perhaps have a report that says, give me all the people who donated between, you know, January 1 and June 1. Then you can filter that down to say, and dollar amount is greater than $10, and the number of gifts this year is greater than 0. I mean, you can make multiple filters as you're doing that. So you can ask the user as many questions as you'd like as you build these reports. So, you know, when you're building reports, if you want to ask a question, say, you know, if you want to give them the opportunity to just look at a state, you can give them a filter to select a state, something of that nature.
Right. And Paul, one of the other things, guys, that you should be, just to put everything in context, the way this is different than the current system that you guys are used to. You know, we have currently predefined reports. If you think of predefined reports in our system, those are the default reports here. The major difference is that with this new platform, we are expecting there to be over, I think, 300, Mike, default reports ready to go for all the different parts of the, for the different modules and different functionalities inside the system. And so for most part, what we are hoping for is that the users won't have to create their own reports. They'll be able to use one of the hundreds of predefined reports, fill in the variables that Paul was talking about, the filters, and run the report. Now, the current thing that Mike is talking about is the default reports. He will later go into the enhanced report, which is nothing more than the custom reports in our system. And that's where things get a little complicated. So stick with it. And Mike, go ahead. It's all yours.
Yeah.
I have a question, actually.
Sure.
Or I guess it's a request. With all these predefined reports, will we have a definition somewhere of like what they do?
We'll get there.
Okay, thank you.
And again, one of the challenges that we're facing is the integrated platform is much bigger than what we do. So it seems like every day I'm tripping over, oh yeah, they can also do this on the system. How will we accommodate that? And so, yes, those definitions and what is intended to occur when you press this report, what do you expect to get out, that will be the focus. And right now, it's not visible to us here, but we'll show you how that behaves.
Hey, Mike, isn't there a way, I believe, inside of Exago where you can actually put like the bubble, you know, the hover help?
There's in the shell we have that. I'm not sure if that description passes through to the UI. I think Rakshit and I talked about it once, but I don't recall the specific conversation and the specific results of the conversation. But we'll get there as I drill through the program.
Okay.
Yes, every report can have a series of filters, and you can choose which filters. So I'm going to jump into a different client. What I did is I created a filter that said, filter out all of me and all of the QDMH people. So again, going into my default reports here on a different client, going into my configuration report, and going into my users report, there's a filter on everybody with an email address that is at QDMH. I guess I'm going to have to change that filter tomorrow. And so now here in the Help Me See client, we have the 3 users from Help Me See who have access into the database now. All of the at QDMH people are filtered out from this report. Now, one of the very important things is that we utilize economy. This report that we're looking at for Help Me See is the exact same report that we saw on Feed Our Vets. It is the same controls living in the default folder that everybody has. We have the control to put the client's name at the top of the form, the client logo, the user who is actually printing the report, which may not be a user in the database. As you can see, Mike Atkinson actually does not have access to Help Me See per my filters, but we, using the same file, can generate that across all clients. I can move back to my default reports at the bottom of this form at the moment. And just so that you can see, we have a number of different reports here. I'm going to run the monthly report for Help Me See. With the monthly report, what we ask for is a start date and an end date, and obviously that should be inclusive of the month. So this filter window, we do have the ability to change its appearance a bit, and we floated that with Raksheet. Right now, again, this does not look and feel like the Nonprofit Easy integrated platform. We'd like it to feel more integrated. And on my widescreen screen, I can't see the fields and the OK button at the same time. It's kind of a drag. Square screen works better with that. So maybe we can change that so that looks there. So now it's reading through the real data and formatting it. And this report shows us by payment type, month over month, from the date range that we've selected. So we have the total number of gifts. We have the payment types that we've received. We have the date range that we're looking at here on the report. You'll notice there's kind of this odd wrapping here where the value in the cell is bigger than what's available in the cell, so it wraps around. And that's one of the things that we'll have to work with as we design the reports, to try and balance the width of these cells so that they make sense, or the font size. Some of the reports that we might want to run on a regular basis may take longer than what we could expect a client to be able to request. So one of the reports that we had a request for was the last year, but not this year, or some year, but not this year report. In this report, if I click this report name and it starts to execute, on this client, it will take about 5 to 6 minutes to run. It will generate a report that's between 3,000 and 5,000 pages long. It will return, I don't know, maybe 35,000, 40,000 names. So with that length of time, I've created this folder called Scheduler Reports. And out of the shell, we have the ability to schedule this particular report. And the scheduler comes up, and we can enter some information. And because it's going to generate 5,000 pages, I may not want this as a PDF. So I'm going to output it as a CSV. And I could execute immediately, or I could schedule a time for it. All right, so if I say 1:30 p.m. once, on date, okay, today. It prompts me for the filters, and I've talked with Rexheet. This report doesn't need any filter selection. But if it did, it would prompt us for them. In this case, we would want to bypass that. And I can send who to send it to. So this report has now been scheduled to fire off at 1:30. When the report is finished running, it is set to go to Tracy. Tracy, you are not going to get an email yet. We know that the emails aren't going out. Rexheet is researching, but it will be put into the queue when Rexheet finishes the research and figures out why it's not emailing. It will fire off to you, Tracy. But this will be an item where we can gather reports that are going to be bigger in time to run, because to click the report and say how many people or how much money came in or whatever it is, if it's going to take some time, we can throw it into the scheduler and automate it and have it make sense for us.
You know, guys, this is another. Go ahead, Eric.
They can schedule any report is the first thing. So if I go into my direct marketing reports, I have currently the available to schedule everything.
How does the user? How does
but
the user
I
know
think that we
what
will,
should and shouldn't be scheduled?
based on
They're
observations
not know
in
until I try,
building
right?
the report, say, hey, you know what? Let's not put this anywhere other than the scheduler. You know, that last year but not this year report. I ran it on the DVNF database. Again, it came up with 500,000 individual records, 50,000 pages of reports. It took about an hour to generate that report. Obviously, that shouldn't belong anywhere but under the scheduler hood, if you will. Even this Help Me See client and my Feed Our Vets client, they're on the small side for us, and they take 5 to 6 minutes to run. And so I said, you know, because that's the case, let's put them in, let's create this folder called Scheduler Reports and just put those in there.
And to answer your question, Eric, a lot of this will, you know, a client can try and run a report, right? And they know the size of the database, right? They know that they have, you know, 2 million contact records or 2,000 contact records. Now, if they have 2,000 contact records, none of this, the Libent will run just as fast as anything else, right? And it doesn't matter. But in cases where they know that let's say they run a report and they realize that they have 500,000 names popping out, right? Then they know that they can in the future always schedule that report. And as you saw when Mike was doing the scheduling of the reports, you can actually have it as a recurring. So it's not a one-time schedule. So you can say every Monday morning, I want the development team to get this one report out. And so the system will run it prior to that and email it every Monday morning to that team. So the good part with that is that, you know, part of this is that we are not, it doesn't have to be where we decide for them. Some of it is going to be, they will learn as they run the reports that, hey, wait a minute, you know, I'm not going to sit here for 6 minutes to get 100, 200,000 names. I'm just going to schedule it and let the system tell me when it's ready to go. And, you know, a lot of our competition like Salesforce, they will show you the first 2,000 names, but after that, it's, you know, it's run offline, right? And this is something similar to that. And I think it's a feature request we've had for a long time that they want to automate and schedule the reports to go out to the different team members. And this does that.
Yeah. Hey, and guys, remember, there's a lot of things with the scheduler. They don't even have to be giant reports. It can just be, you may have a group of people who don't have a desire to actually get into the system, but you'd like the senior managers at an organization to get the, you know, the weekly income reports every Friday. So, you know, it just shows up on their email address. And likewise, you know, we really shouldn't be producing reports that spit out 200,000 lines. I mean, that's a different issue for big clients. You know, that's a kind of an education issue where you get a client like that, but that's another side of it.
Right.
So as we've been working with the system and with the Exago interface, one of the things that we've really tried to do is to try and create a uniform appearance across the reports, kind of to build a brand type level. All of the fonts in the system are using an open sans font. So all of the reports that we're building, we're using the same font. We're trying to make that consistent so that it has the look and feel of the application. I'm going to go full screen here. So here's one of the contact reports. You know, at the top we built this shell, and this was us kind of spitballing it. We came up with 3 or 4 different options as to what the header should look like. And then we threw it out to some folks, and some folks said, oh, we like this one better. So that's the header that we have. It kind of looks that way. Here is the contact summary report for one of the people in the Feed Our Vets database. What we have is the header information associated with this. The word donor here is a contact type, which is kind of a new thing for us, but it's a common thing for the Nonprofit Easy folks. If Ms. Smith had other donor types, such as a volunteer or household, it would appear on this report. The giving summary kind of has the feel just like the contact page here. The communication preferences and information. So we have the send mail preference, the send email preference, the phone preference. We could envision there being more preferences as more channels come online. So she has a send mail preference is set to yes. And for our mail category recency frequency amount, this is her current configuration for that. That information updates regularly as time goes by. The tags and smart tags associated with Mrs. Smith's values are here. And then some of the giving history. I say some of the giving history because right now, the way the batches were imported, I don't get to show her full $800 worth of giving, although normally that would be what we get. We get her entire giving history on the bottom of this report. And we'll fix that when we reload our data. And this is the report we envision right back on the contact page, this being available right off of when we're looking at her record. And then I have a contact tax summary report. Again, just a very similar looking thing, but this is hard-coded to last year, whatever last year is. So the report says, show me the responses between the first day of last year and the last day of last year. And so now we have just 3 gifts reported that she made in 2013 to report the tax information. We have another report out there that shows all of the responses and all of the mailings. One of the challenges with that contact detail report is we have, you know, some clients with millions and millions of records in the mailing file, in the opportunity file. And so it's got to read through all of them to gather those. So we haven't published that one up here to our defaults yet. For the Nonprofit Easy people, I have the execute link here. I'd like to show you something that you've probably already noticed that I didn't mention, that I should have. We have the client logo at the top of the report, if the client provides us with a logo. At the bottom of the report, you probably all noticed this evaluation error, exception has been thrown, blah, 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 in the lower left-hand corner. In the lower left-hand corner of our report, we have the provider logo. So this should be showing us the Nonprofit Easy logo in the bottom left-hand side of the report on every page. But because of our development server, only one provider can be included on the server. So these are looking for the Innovair provider logo. And of course, you can't see the Innovair when we're Nonprofit Easy configuration. So that error will be on every report you look at until we publish live. or the guys flip that back to Innovair for us. And when it's running on the server that's supporting a Nonprofit Easy client, it will have the Nonprofit Easy logo. So the default reports area, these are going to be canned, some flexibility on them where we will be able to pull up the direct marketing performance. So a direct marketing is a mail campaign that we do. It'll prompt and say, hey, what appeal do you want to look at? And we have that all built. So this reads through the database and it looks at this appeal, and it will generate for us how each segment did, how each package did, and how the appeal did overall. When we run these reports, we often have to run them for more than one mail file at a time. So if we do, we'll have the ability to say, by the mail date, or this appeal plus that appeal, or this appeal type.
Hey, Mike. Hey, so for our folks from Nonprofit Easy, so how could they create a default report and get it onto the into one of the default folders?
Is now the time to go there. I'm going to show you that. It's very, very simple to do. Let me make sure that I get through all of the things I want to talk to here at the default level first, right? And I think I'm just about done with that. So you run this, you enter the filter choice, and as Paul mentioned earlier, you can have more than one filter. And let me go now into my view all. Again, I don't expect the view all link to live and survive. I think we're going to change that. And the original idea was that the default reports would be our preset canned list of reports. And then the enhanced reports would bring us into this Exago shell. This is where we can modify reports or build brand new reports. And the thought is that, 80-20 rule, 80% of our users are just going to use the default report. They're going to click a donor report. They're going to click an appeal performance report and run those. They're not going to need to tweak or change anything. But 20% of our clients are going to want to mess with the report, and they're going to want it to look different in some way, shape, or form. And so the vision was we would create this enhanced report folder, which would allow the donors to tweak an existing report so that it better suits their individual needs. And so under the enhanced report link, we would have user-created reports or user-created variations of reports that they would be able to activate and run. The enhanced reports folder may be changed to the company name because the permission structure in the system is based on folder structures within the Exago printing system. So we may have a series of folders here that are Help Me See, Feed Our Vets, DVNF, and those individual clients' customized reports will live under that company name folder. So we have here in the shell the default folder, and if I expand it, you'll see I have those 6 links that we showed: banking, configuration, contact, count, direct marketing, and scheduler. If the client says, hey, I want a count report, but I want it by gender, well, we could change one of these reports, make it be by gender, and store it under the enhanced reports. And now they would have account report by gender in their enhanced reports or my company report folder. Does that make sense? Okay. There was also discussion about an individual user customized report. So that would be another level. I expect this to be few and far between where we would have such a power user that they would have a configuration that only they would want to run. But that could happen where it's a report that they don't want anyone else in their organization to be able to see. If there's some confidential information that shouldn't be shared, there may be a list of folders that are identifying an individual user within a company that we will be able to grant access to. It would be my personal custom report.
We actually had a client specifically ask for that in our system.
I'm sorry?
We had one client who specifically, sorry, I'm getting an echo.
Yes.
Had a client who asked basically to be able to mark reports as private so only they could see it. So I suspect it will get used.
Right, and Rakshit had sent that research
We actually had a
across
client
early
specifically
on
ask for that
to say,
in our
hey,
system.
how do we do this?
So
And again, the
we had
folder,
one client who
the permissions are driven by
an echo.
the folder.
I had a client
So
who
to
asked
block
basically
out
to be able to mark
everybody
reports as private so
except
only
Mike
they could see
Atkinson
it.
at QDMH, we would
So
have
I
to
suspect
create
it will
a
get
Mike
used.
Atkinson at QDMH folder that we could then create permissions so that only I would be able to see that data. And we've discussed that, and we think that's going to be in place. And so we know that this tree of folders will get large, which is, we want to focus on economy. So the more stuff that is available to put in default where everybody shares it, the better. But we know that our clients are going to ask us for crazy stuff that's only for them, and for that, that will go into our current envision is enhanced reports. So let's take a look at a couple of things here now. When we envision the enhanced reports, we kind of think if we set the table in the default reports correctly, that they're going to come to us and say, hey, I would like this report, but change it to be that. So we might have my direct marketing performance report that somebody wants to change something up. So were they to do that, we would say, okay, well, I'm going to make a copy of the direct marketing performance and I'm going to move it to enhanced because our default reports will be read-only. Nobody will be able to get in and change those because we don't want anybody breaking them for the entire system. So now I've got direct marketing down here in the enhanced, and here we can actually begin to edit the report. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hide some things on my screen so we can see more of the screen. And we have the ability to edit the report in the Exago shell. And those users who can get into the enhanced reports, who have permission to do this, can get in here and run amok. So I'm going to discuss briefly some of the Exago stuff. Exago holds regular training meetings, and we sent around to a number of people videos of their basic training class and their advanced training class. Those videos now are probably 5 months out of date, and so there may be some changes here that relate to that. But I would imagine that we could get in and view the current training sessions if we wanted to as well. So a lot of what I'm going to show you here, there's other places where more experienced people than me could provide you with perhaps better guidance. But we'll come in play here. So this is what the report looks like before it is generated. Some people have said, hey, this looks like a lot like crystal reports. And yeah, it does, it behaves like a reporting engine. We have a lot of flexibility on it, but it's not limitlessly flexible. So in our report header section, we have our first 5 or 6 lines of data where we have the client name, we have the name of the report, we're grabbing the what has been entered into the filter, so what appeal am I looking at? Again, I've got to scroll left and right here, I'm sorry about that. Stop. We have the client logo. Again, how these fields are created is pretty simple. It's not complicated. But if we have a value here that is the cost per dollar raised. So did we spend 50 cents to raise $1, or did we spend $2 to raise $1? Hopefully the former, not the latter. In some of our clients, they don't want to know the cost per dollar raised. They want to know the return on investment. Similar ideas of data, they're just different ways of looking at numbers. So we could change this, and I'm not sure I'm going to be able to do the formula update, but I could change it from cost per dollar raised to ROI. And then within the application, we have this full formula that says, take the appeal cost and divide it by the response amount. Well, if we do that the other way, we get a different item. I think this is how we do this. So there may be clients who, instead of dividing A by B, want to divide B by A, and instead of getting cost per dollar raised, they get ROI.
Hey, Mike, just real quick, when you made that calculation, was there a validation that the system did that it said that it was a legal, a proper way to write the equation? The fields existed at that point.
This particular tweak, no. There is the closest thing you get is if I put an inaccurate value in there.
Yep.
I do get the underline under the letter A. So
that's telling you that A is not allowed. What if you grab the wrong field? Or you have the wrong syntax? Like,
you may,
AGG sum. What if you tried to type in AGGG sum?
Yeah, again, yes, you would get the underline saying that. I don't know what that is. It would warn you on that. And to add any of the values, this is, again, a little bit beyond where I wanted to go with this, but if I want to add a value, I can just double-click on the value, and it drops it right in. So to create the formula itself from scratch is very simple. I can divide the estimated revenue by the delivery date. That would not make any sense to anybody. But the system knows that, hey, these are values that we can choose. Whereas if it's, let's take out the, what happens there if I do that? It's not seeing that as an error yet. So again, it will spit up the errors. It will highlight where there are errors on the report in that regard. Again, here all I'm doing is I'm tweaking the individual line on this report, and I'm changing the calculation from our cost per dollar raised to our return on investment, and now I can fire this report on. Hopefully it'll work. Cannot contain an aggregation within an aggregation. So I did something bad there. And that's the one it was. 13M. That should work. I must have broken.
Oh, I see it.
You do?
Yes, your 3 ag sums. The second one has an opening parentheses, then has that appeal stuff, then divide, and then within that has this third ag sum, and then closes after that. So you're ag summing an ag sum.
Oh, I see it.
This is the way I do reports.
Yes,
If I just muck around until they
three
work.
ag sums. The second one has
clever
an
that
opening
way?
parentheses, then has that appeal stuff, then divide, and then within
Sometimes
that has
it takes
this
me
third
a
ag
dozen
sum,
tries, but usually
Now
and
is,
then closes after that.
is muck around a
So you're
scientific
ag
term?
summing an ag sum.
yes, absolutely. So, with beyond the fact that what I just did didn't work, that's kind of how we envision what we originally called enhanced reports would work. They're going to be customer-specific reports, client-specific reports, and if we build the default reports right, if we do what's right there, we're going to set the table and say, here's the stuff that our experience tells us most people need to know about their data. But somebody's going to say, I don't want that, I want it to say this, and this is the ability we have to tweak that report.
Hey, Mike.
Yep.
Can you scratch a simple report that says I want to see all donors who donated more than $50 between June 30th, 2014.
Okay. You were cutting in and out there, Lamesh, so if I heard what I think I heard, let me show you what I think I heard. So one of the things that we would try and do is to try and have a pretty standardized look to the reports, again, to build the brand, build the Nonprofit Easy brand, build the Innovair brand. And so to do that, we had created and designed a bunch of templates. Oh, I don't want to do that. I want to do that. So in the template, let's see if it'll come up for me. What we said is we want the header to look like this, the footer to look like this, page 2 to look like this, the subsequent pages to look like this, the last page to look like that. Now that's not going to work for me, so let me go back to the edit version. So in my report header, we have the client name, we have the client logo, we have the appeal contact. We have the page number, we have the date, even though that says page number there. We put the date at the top only on page 1, and the username. Currently on the report footer, at the bottom of the report, we have what's called the report full name, which is the path where this report lives. Where did this get printed from? On the bottom of each page, we provide the provider logo and the page number. And at the top of every page that is not page 1, we have the name of the report. Notice that the report has a number of columns. You have to kind of lay this out in advance and think about how it's going to be. And so in our template column, we kind of picked this item to have a small indent on the left side where column A is 18 pixels wide, and a small indent on the right side where column L is 18 pixels wide. And then that allows me to take columns C and D and join them together for the tran code. Or I can break them apart. So if I want to lay 7 pieces of data on the report side by side, I've got a plan to have that at least that many columns. So in our first discussions, we said, okay, well, let's set up this number of columns. Let's see how this works for us. We can change the width of the columns. We can ensure that this report profile prints on an 8.5 by 11 page, regardless of how many pixels I have here. But we may need to cause cells to be joined or unjoined to make the data layout correctly.
So Mike, are you saying that they have to start with template? If I wanted to start blank slate and my report, would I be able, how would I?
If you wanted to start a new report from scratch,
Yeah.
if you click the Create New Report, you have the ability to join a standard report or a crosstab report. So a standard report would be where we would start. In our estimation, starting from a standard report is going to put too great of a demand on too many of our users. So the first thing that I would do is create a name for this report. Then I would have to choose, okay, what data elements do I want to report from? Well, you had said something with donors, if I'm not forgetting, if I'm not mistaken, Lamesh. So the contact view tells us about the individual donors. And you had asked, I think, about a giving amount. Is that correct?
Yeah. So I just chatted you the report, the
So the contact view is the name and the address and the summary data for that particular donor. It includes their first gift and their most recent gift, but it doesn't include every gift. Once I select the contact view, it has built some joins to these other highlighted items on the left. So the deposited fund view, which I would have a join between the donor and all of the money that they have deposited. So to get the data that you asked for specifically, I would need to choose those two categories. Then I would need to set up my sorts. In what order do I want to display this information? If I was looking for all of the donors who gave greater than $50 in the month of July, what I might want to do is look at my deposited fund view by deposit date. I might want to sort the data that way. And then I have to go into a filter, and I have to, okay, how do I want to filter the data now? Okay, well, I only want, oh, where's my view? Where's my view? It's alphabetical order. They changed the order on it. I only want to look at contact type equal to donors. So you know you have many contact types, so I'm going to choose the contact type equal donor. And I'm going to filter on deposited fund view by deposited date. And I'm going to say deposited date is between, and I'm going to prompt for the value. So this is the meat of the Exago engine. So now I have what data elements from the database am I going to be looking at? And then I get to my layout screen, and here we would say, okay, well, what do we want on here? First name, last name.
Okay, this seems a lot easier than what I was seeing before.
City, state. So,
Okay, this seems a lot easier than what I was seeing
we
before.
go. Let's say the deposit date, payment amount. So now we have Lamesh. So here at the bottom, you can see kind of a preview of what you're going to get. And I should be able to execute this, and it will say what's the date. So let's pick 7/1/14 to 7/31/14. And this should now run against the data. I think I'm in Feed Our Vet, so I think I have data for this information. The concern that I have with this is that it provides us a list of information, right? This is all accurate information. But it looks kind of generic here. No harm, no foul in that. But by starting with a template, we could do the changes that will make this perhaps make a bit more sense. So we have some wraps here on the address, where address line is wrapping around. So if I insert a column, oh, not there, delete that column. I can now combine and spread that address around so that it's wider.
Mm-hmm.
I can format the cells so that the deposited amount actually looks like money. So it's pretty quick to put it together, but again, from my point of view, it doesn't look or feel like it's coming from the system. So I still have some rather wraps here where New Smyrna Beach wraps and creates that extra space here. My column header wraps, my numbers are justified on the left, whereas normally I'd want numbers justified on the right.
Hey, Mike, and I think I agree. You probably want people starting from a template. But suppose you like this report. How do you get this into the default reports? Do you just save it and drag it over to the folder?
Yes. So Lamesh's report is here. I can actually choose to duplicate it, or I can literally do the click and drag. Wait. Now under my contact reports, we have Lamesh's report. If I go back to default, it's right there.
I'm applauding in my mind, just so you know.
You can applaud out loud. We'll let you. There we go. That's what we like to hear.
That's nice. That's nice.
So again, what we want to do is we want to have the default reports, the canned reports. We want to set that table fairly well so that it makes sense. Here we're looking, now I did not prompt a filter for the money, the minimum money. I think that you had asked that, Lamesh. I could certainly add that into the filter. It's a simple enough thing to do as I'm building the report. And this may work fine for a lot of people, but again, with the idea of making it look and feel like the system, and consistent from report to report to report, we wanted to create a template that included our header information, that included the information, and they can tweak this if they need to, and that it would make sense for them.
But yeah, so I think the reason I wanted to ask you on that is just so that the team on our side idea of how to create custom.
And certainly there's going to be those people that are clients who this is easy. But there's some people that you would ask to do this, and it would just so overwhelm them, that therein lies the challenge.
Right.
Now, let us talk a bit about editing an existing report here. Well, let's go back into Lamesh. In the other screen, the more complicated screen that you're seeing, we have the ability to name the report, which I think I called Lamesh's report. We have the ability to provide a description And the description is really useful. This is a great report that Lomesh asked me to build on the spot. No pressure at all. Happy to. So we can provide a description here. Someone had asked, hey, is there a description? And in the report screen here, oh, I didn't save it. Save. The description is listed right here in the Exago shell. So if they were in the enhanced report side of the business, we would have a description here that says, what does this report do? Hey, I'm looking at this report. What is it about? We want to have a good description in this area. And the question that we have, and I don't know that we have it answered yet, is can Rakshit grab that description and have it available in a pop-up balloon or some manner here, so that when I mouse over Lamesh's report, can it pop up that description and tell us what it is?
Do you have a left click, right click option there, Mike?
It's not connect. Yeah, it does, but it doesn't do that. So, again, we had talked about this, I think, with Lamesh, but I don't know where we ended up on it. I thought he said there was not a way for Exago to pass it back and forth through the UI at the moment, but I'm not positive of that.
I've got a crazy question. Can I do a report that gives me a list of all my reports and their descriptions?
At the moment, not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
And I certainly, one of the things that we're doing right now with our reports,
I've got a crazy
and that
question.
I've tried to be consistent
Can I
about
do a
it,
report that gives
May
me
not
a
have
list of all my
succeeded at
reports
that.
and their descriptions?
is right now in the descriptions, if I've done what I said I've done, is we have the name, the date the report was originally built or tweaked or finalized or whatever state it is now. I have what data element, and I'm going to talk about this a little bit more here as we proceed, is this report using. So this report is from the deposited fund view. When executed, this report prompts for the date. This report will display the banking transactions for the selected date. That's really the description, this one highlighted sentence. But for the moment, we're putting this extra information in here so that we have a record of it and that we can grab it and keep it. I think kind of the idea is I want that information in a report that I can build and print. And so if we have this, when was it constructed, who built it, it's designed for an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. And right now we don't have a place for that information to live, but we could certainly see the description being just this highlighted sentence, but all of this other information being captured somewhere where we do have access to it so that we could provide that information.
I would love that.
I would too. I think that would be really good if we had that. We're going to work on getting something that does that for us, because out of the Prosper system, we have 1,000 reports, and each of those have different filters and variations.
I would love
we
that.
could probably generate 7,000 discrete pieces of paper out of the system. And that's just crazy. We don't want to have that many pieces of information, that many pieces of paper coming out of the system, at least not off the bat. So we have another level of reporting listed over here that is agency reports. And these reports will be reports for the Innovair group that are custom for our knowledge that we use. So it's kind of like, remember I said the enhanced is kind of be kind of client-specific, customized, and tweaked reports. There are some things that we do that is, again, a next level above that, but it needs to be across all clients. And again, because folders are permission-driven, we will have permission into that, and we'd be able to create that type of information. The archive folder and the development folder listed here, these are development and junk. You know, the things that are in archive do not use, really, we're just going to throw those out. But before we throw them out, let's just let them live there for a week or two before somebody says they need to get rid of it. And you can see that there are a lot of different reports that are available. We've spent a little bit of time doing dashboards, not a ton, but the dashboards are kind of a big deal in the Exago world, is that they give us links into the data, and it's interactive. So all of the dashboard stuff is HTML-based, and it allows us to do some fancy schmancy stuff with it. So if I wanted to dig deeper into Appeal 1405 FD, all occasion cards, I can actually just click on that bar, and it will pull up the return on investment by package. So there were, within this one mail file, 4 packages. The envelope test did best. If I click on the envelope test, it pops up and pulls up this screen. And it tells me the 4 segments in that package, this is the result of those.
Mike, is that report on your defaults?
No. It's a great sizzle, though, Paul. We know that sizzle sells
Canopy?
I don't know. I know that.
Drag it over.
You want to see if we can drag it over? Okay, let's see what we can do with that. Let's put that. You know what? I think is going to happen here, Paul. If I duplicate that under default direct marketing. Let's see.
Going to give her a pause.
This is what we call a rabbit hole. Yeah, there it is. This has been my top secret, you know, Paul. I wasn't supposed to get to this for you yet.
Too late.
I know you were waiting for this, babe. So again, we can drill into the appeals. If I wanted, over here on the right side of this, I have the major donor list. And what this is doing is we have hard-coded into this report gifts greater than or equal to $500. And they are sorted, although you can't see it on this screen, they're sorted over here on the far right column by the date. So the newest gift is up at the top. So if somebody gave us $500 today, it would be right at the top of the list. If they give us $500 tomorrow, it would be right at the top of the list. Click on the contact ID, and it's opening up the report out of the contact report, the contact detail report. Here is the contact detail report that I mentioned, which shows all of the individual mail files that this particular donor has received and the gifts that they have given. So we know that dashboard has a lot of sizzle to it and will be a big deal. We can imagine that, you know, here we have 2 weeks worth of deposits right now because we are not processing incoming daily files. This will, when we set it up, it would actually look at the 2 most recent weeks. Right now it's hard-coded to August because that's the last few days of our deposits on this particular item. And it drills. I think this should come up with my daily deposit report.
Hey, Mike.
Yeah.
You know, when we fire up the application, can we actually make this a report become your default screen?
Yeah, I'll answer that question for you. We are on a landing page that the user and they can decide what elements they want on that page. And part of it is this dashboard piece.
I heard you echo, so I'm not really answer, but I think we'll follow up on it.
Okay.
So yeah, that dashboard, we know that's slick. We know that it's using some really powerful elements in the system. As you see, as I mouse over here, some of this stuff, you'll see that the HTML report output is available, or the PDF output of the report is available to execute. And again, you can click on items to drill into them based on the HTML stuff.
My planner wanted to actually put together 3 different dashboards. One for an executive, another for a major gift officer, and another for like a direct mail department leader.
What we sort of envision, and we've not delved too deeply into it yet because we're trying to get the basics done, is to create a variety of dashboard components, if you will. And each user would be able to have their own dashboard report, right? Dashboard summary. I don't know if we'll want to set up the system to accommodate that so that everybody has something unique, but there's no reason why it couldn't be. So much as within our default report, right now I'm showing 5 or 6 static paper PDF reports. We may end up with 24 dashboard components, and the user can say, I want component number 3 and component number 7. Or I want component number 3 and component number 7 and component number 21. And have that on their own personal dashboard. Some of the challenges with that, just, because everybody's real excited about it, real slick, real clever, is that it works great on the screen. So we have this 2D matrix with dollars, and here on the screen it shows us, okay, these are the recencies for this client, these are the amount breakdowns for this client, these are the number of people within each of those recencies and groups. But you can't print this. It doesn't print well. Because it is driven by the configuration where we have, these 20 some odd recencies and all of the different amount groups, that there's not a decent way to print this. We are researching that to figure out how we can make that happen, but we have no resolution on that yet. So
you can export this to Excel, though, right, Mike?
I'm sorry?
You can export that to Excel, correct?
No, this cannot be exported.
Huh?
No, this is HTML only, on screen only at the moment. So that's one of the reasons why we haven't been telling everybody about how cool it is. But what we've done is we've created a static version of this report that's not driven by HTML, that we can run as a PDF or Excel or RTF or whatever. The trick with the static version of this report, it's not a trick, the limitation with the static version of the report is that I can only read variables on one of the 2 axes. So as I generate this report for a PDF, the axis that we've chose to make dynamic is the left side axis, which is our recency values. So I have the 1 month recency value, 3, 4 to 6. These are right out of the system configuration. But the horizontal axis, the dollar amount, these had to be hard-coded into the system. So this is not...
Oh, they didn't read it from config?
I'm sorry?
They did not read it from the config?
there's no way to do both accesses from the config, as I understand it at the moment.
For things like this, who's communicating these type of limitations back to Exago so that we can get those things fixed or onto their enhancement list?
There is some feedback from me. Ken and Rakshit both have, and I think even Richard have access to communicate to Exago as well, to their support site.
Okay. Well, we're going to become a very big user of theirs. I want to make sure that, you know, we're driving enhancements through this product, as you know, because as we commit to this, we're going to be getting, you know, really, really close to these guys, because this will be a pain in the butt if we ever decide to go to a different report engine, right? So we want to make sure that we're really close to them in a partnership.
Yep. So, you know, in the HTML version, right, this is reading right off of the configuration. So off of the feed our vets items, we have the 100 to 199, 200 to 299. But in the hardwired configuration here, we go to 1 to 250, 250 to 5. And we set it up in this way so that it lays out on the, you know, 8.5 by 11 piece of paper in landscape. So there's a lot of functionality in the HTML that doesn't naturally translate into putting it onto a piece of paper. And we have communicated this. How do I print this to Exago? I'm not sure that we've had any feedback at all from them on that. So again, our design is, our plan as we have it, is we have our default reports. We're going to build our, you know, hopefully it's greater than 80-20. Hopefully it's 90-10 or 93-7, so that most of our reports are available here. But we know, no matter what we do, our clients are going to be way more creative than we can anticipate them being. And they're going to say, well, I want it this way. And so we have the ability to create an enhanced reports group. And again, this may be named to the client folder or some other way along that, where we'll be able to tweak and modify or build and charge clients for specific information if they want. If they want something really crazy that's outside of the norm, you know, certainly to build these reports is not terribly complicated if our data elements are available. And then we will have, again, user-level reports based on permissions and what have you. We have the scheduler. So again, here is a report that we don't run real regularly, but is fairly common, where we say, okay, on my database right now, how many people have this CRFA? And we've got 2 people on the database out of 140,000 with that configuration. And so we'll have extended reports at the client level. Working even deeper into the system. We've seen our default reports. We've seen how to build a report. And I know that was a fast hit and run on how to build them. How to tweak a report is available. One of the challenges that we face is, do we have the data elements necessary and available to us? The database is very big and very complex and growing every day. It will soon stop growing or start growing much more slowly. There are some things that we do where a change is made on the system and all of a sudden my report doesn't work. So if you're in the system and you're clicking in any of these reports and trying to see what they do and it doesn't run, it did when I put it into the default reports. A change was made on the system that we need to get addressed, and you know, usually I can fix the report so it matches the system. But the data elements themselves have now switched over into the Azure database. The data elements themselves continue to grow and change as the application is developed and our definitions and requirements get communicated to Rec Sheet. Again, he and I communicate regularly. We have we were meeting twice a week. We're now meeting once a week and continuing to communicate through email. I speak with Nahir every morning, and we have our meetings there. So there's plenty of communication going on. But this is the area where our raw materials for reports live. And so the system provides us all of the data elements as we've asked them as they've become available to build the various reports. And as the nonprofit easy modules come on board, the membership pieces, the event pieces, obviously this list is going to continue to grow, and we're going to have to figure out how those pieces fit into our views and make those available to you in the Exago piece. So we have a couple of things for events here that have not been defined on Exago. So let me give you just a quick overview on that piece. Let me just backtrack a bit. I'm going to go into the Lamesh's report. And in Lamesh's report, go back to categories here. We have access to appeal analysis, appeal contact, appeal deposited funds, appeal select, ask array, contact smart tag, contact tag, expense group, spouse, matrix, output template, security. There's no events piece here. Right now, you cannot build anything, a report related to events. The database has 3 event views built, but the Exago application can't see them yet. So let's fix that. The Exago administration page allows me to create the new connection into the events area. This is an area of the program that we don't like to go into a lot, because if anybody's looking at the report engine now and I change anything here, it blows up on their end. So what I'm going to do now, if anybody's running reports, what I'm going to do is going to cause it to blow up for somebody. So I'm going to create a new data object. Oh, sorry, let me not do that one. Let's go to MPEV2. And I will create the object for event view. So I just created an event view item in Exago. And so I'm going to leave the reporting system so that you don't see the errors it spits out at me. And if I go back into my report, it's all set. That's all I needed to do was leave and come back. And it refreshes on its way. And now the event view is available here. You can see it highlighted. I can't click on it because there's not a join to the contact view, which is my primary. But the object is available to us, and now I could begin to create the reports that the events might require. And I may need to add more elements to that particular item, but that admin console allows me to create the objects for the Exago reporting. And it's a little bit more complicated than that, but once it's there, you're able to go in and build your reports. So in addition to the objects, I might need to create joins and set up parameters that we would pass back and forth. But once it's there, it's in my toolkit for building reports. As new pieces come on board, we'll create those new objects and make them available for everybody who's doing report work. Does anyone have any questions about this 30,000-foot overview?
Hey, Mike, can you make the training links available to everybody, please, the MP guys, and just so they can actually go in and see the training videos?
I can. When we started, I had said there is some regular training from Exago. We have recordings that were made, I think, back in July timeframe. And so certainly I'll send those out to everybody. I would think that with the nonprofit easy email address, you could probably even enroll on those right of the Exago Inc. website for the current one. If you are with Innovare, they may ask who is Innovare, but they're really pretty good about giving everybody access who needs it. They just want to confirm that we're real users and not just some knuckleheads trying to spy on them or something. I don't know.
Yeah, we should probably reach out to them and let them know about the name change in advance so that they have a heads up. But no, it looks great. Looks great.
Again, what we're hoping for is that we get most of the stuff done, and there is always new data being added to the database and new elements that are coming on board, and so reports. There's some stuff that I'd love to build today, but I can't because the data is not there yet. So we're getting our, in my banking reports, my daily file import process. Those of you who've been around me at all in the last 3 months, I would love to run this transaction detail report for today. Because this transaction detail. Now let me go to the fourth. It tells me who made a deposit on this day. And so once we get a daily file import process, I know here on this date, Mr. Cletus Stemper sent in $6. Thank you, Mr. Stemper. And
That's the kind of report, everybody, that you could have, even a very generic summary report. It will go right out to an executive director saying, last night, here's the money that was deposited.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure that even on the summary, they'd even want to know the individual.
They just want to know, hey, yesterday, this much money.
Yep, this is that one. And, because we know that clients are always going to ask for both versions, we have both versions right available.
Hey, Mike, have they talked about, or maybe you check, being able to send any information directly via text?
I've not had any discussions on that I'm aware of.
Yeah, because, that would be pretty powerful. Yeah, could you imagine if you're the executive director of an organization and, every morning at breakfast, you get the full deposit amount from last night?
Now, let's see. Yeah, you could export type, and let's see. You could send it as an RTF through the scheduler, and the recipient go into the email. I'm not quite sure if we can configure it to a SMS number, but maybe.
Yeah, that's definitely that'd definitely be an excellent request for those guys if they're not thinking about it.
Any
It'd have to
other?
be very basic reports.
Oh, sure.
Sure, it'd be the very high-end things, but, the type of things that an executive director would like. I'd like the list of the top 5 donors from last night, so I can call them and thank them.
And that's one
It'd have
of
to
the
be very
things,
basic reports.
it's the basic version of the dashboards, right? Hey, can I take this dashboard element, this major donor list here? Now, right now, I have it set up as, it's hardwired to $500, but we could hardwire that number to, $100 or $100 and 1 penny. So, and that comes to an SMS if that's the donation level that's normal for the organization, that, hey, here's the 7 people who donated more than $100 yesterday. And every morning it gets emailed to him or sent to his text box machine, telephone thing, whatever those are. Those of you who know me as a Luddite can appreciate that.
I know Verizon Wireless offers an email version to turn email and turns it into text. I would wonder if other carriers offer that too. So, Mike, you and I could test that if you wanted to.
Yep. No, again, right now the email function is not running. Rakshit is checking it. So, any other questions on the things that you've seen today concerning reporting? So,
Good macro.
as speaking with Rashid this morning, expect the interface on the default reports to modify and change a bit. We saw the mock-up that we had sent out. Some of these reports will be available in other pages of the system where it makes sense for them to be available. So those are some of the big changes that you'll see. If there's need for more folders, we'll create more folders. And as new data pieces become available, those will be available for us as well. Other than that, I have nothing for this meeting. I'll be back same at 2 o'clock tomorrow to discuss the direct marketing piece. So if there's no other questions for this now.
Guys, any questions?
I think I'm okay for now.
Mike, thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you, everybody. Let me know if there's any questions that come up.
Sounds good.
Bye. Bye.
Bye now.
I think I'm okay for now. Thank you.